So today we're starting a two-part series, and that is the 10 leadership mistakes that are draining your team's energy. Now, I have to just guess, I'm taking a wild guess here, but I have to guess that those mistakes have to also be draining the leader. Do they not?
Absolutely. They do. They create frustration for both the business owner and or that business unit leader, manager, and it creates frustration for the individuals that are working under those environments as well.
Yeah. Well, Hector, I can't wait to have you teach us through it. Willie, I guess you're the tech guy on the slides. So whoever's, you guys are doing the dance, take it away. We look forward to hearing what you got for us, and we're going to be taking notes.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Alan, for that intro. And as always, we'll go through the teaching component of the call, and then we'll get into some Q&A on the back end. So as Alan was saying, this is a two-part series. We're going to talk about the 10 leadership mistakes that are draining your team, your business, your leaders, and your staff. Today, we're going to go through the top 5, and then next week, we're going to leave you on the hook to come back for the other 5. So starting us off with just pointing out who's experienced constant changing priorities in a business. Like who's had that experience to them, right? Right. And as entrepreneurs and mostly business leaders, you're often chasing the next shiny object, right? The next hot thing, and in doing so, you often create a lot of chaos, right? Like that's the cost of what you're doing when you're doing it. So Willie, if you can go into the next slide. Perfect. Yeah. So when, as you know, as you're creating that chaos, you're also putting like disengagement and confusion. So I always like to say that your team needs stability, right? Stability every week brings that priority, and it brings clarity. If you don't have that, man, it's just so frustrating as a middle manager, as a senior manager in an organization. It becomes like almost like you become tone deaf when you have a leader or an organization that's constantly trying to pivot every single time. And what happens is that you stop taking those priorities seriously. You literally stop hearing it because there's no point. You always think, well, next week this person's going to tell me to go chase that. And so you start to create a culture that just essentially stops caring, right? So I always think and say to my teams, like, we are going to set clear priorities. Those priorities are going to be set in stone for a minimum of a quarter. A minimum of a quarter, that gives you pure, true stability for the next 90 days. And unless there's like some major business change that occurs, like you lose a key account that is drastic to your business, and or you lose a business leader that that was super important for your business, you don't change priorities. You stick it through the next 90 days. Now, you're going to say, well, how do you know that you can handle just 90 days? Like, what if something else comes up? And that's when you really have to plan ahead and just say, my business 90-day or per quarter importance are these. And generally, you break those out with a yearly plan, and points that are up and down through the year, and you could say, here's where I need to focus on at this time of the year. At the beginning, your priorities might be contracts or sales or revenue, because you're trying to really set up for that year the performance that you're going to need to output. Now on the back end, on the fourth quarter, you are finishing up the year, and therefore you might be looking at operational costs as a priority, cost reductions, to ensure that you come in under budget for that year while you're creating the budget for the next year. Typically, most organizations will start doing that in October, at the latest November, so that they're planning for financial numbers for the next year and that they have a strong budget in which to go to. So clear priorities, number one. You don't want to be changing these. As a reinforcement, I always say like 3 key priorities for each quarter, right? Resist the urge to change unless it's completely necessary. And so, yeah, this is an important one. Willie, we'll come to you. I think, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on chasing that shiny object and how you've dealt with it.
Yeah, I even when I looked at these topics today, I was thinking the number one caught me right away where I thought this is an issue that I still have to this day. I keep changing my priorities too often. And yeah, especially when I was building the trucking business, it was like every week I was changing my priorities and definitely have really struggled with this one.
Yeah, and as part of the team, I can tell you that it certainly is a challenge from an operational side, from a sales side, even from a finance, right? As you grow,
Yeah.
sticking to a couple, three is the sweet spot. But if you want to go to five, I encourage no more than 5 priorities per quarter. In essence, I would say like one critical priority per department so that everybody has one like key focus. But to your point, it's one that as leaders we have to be mindful of, and we have to work at it every single quarter, because we don't want to send mixed messaging out to our teams, again, for alignment reasons, right? So
Can you maybe give a couple what would be a priority or what would be an example?
yeah, definitely. A key priority for me would be hiring X number of people or headcount for that quarter, right? As you go to uptick and you go to downturns in your business, you might say, hey, I need this many people, and this is the type of roles that I have to fill. So you might say, this is our priority, it's recruitment. This is all that we're working on. Another one, it might just be around ensuring that we have sales numbers to hit. And that's the only number that we're going after.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So moving on to number 2, which is trust over control.
I
Give me,
had micromanaging everything. Oh, you're on mute there.
yeah, give me 1 second. My internet's just freezing up. 1 second. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the second one, you had hovering over, micromanaging, right? So trust over control. So this is important. What I see as well in many organizations and many leaders have a tendency to hire somebody to do a job. And what do they end up doing? They end up doing the job for that person by micromanaging that person. Well, why did you hire them for? What was the point of bringing them in if all you're going to do is be a shadow to them every single time, right? So not only does this really show lack of trust, it slows down productivity and it drains energy in your organization. So what are some signs that you're micromanaging? Well, one, you're hovering, you're rewriting or reviewing others' work constantly, you're double checking every single task. That means that you're not letting the individual grow. You're not letting the individual learn, right? So knowing the difference between coaching and controlling. Coaching is, hey, here's the playlist. Here's what I'd like you to run with. Here's what I want you to accomplish. Controlling is every few minutes. Did you complete that task? What's the status of it? Give me an update. Who's doing what? Messaging like the latter will completely break trust in your organization and for your teams. So just want to point that one out. And so how do you do that? Well, you start to ensure that you delegate correctly and understanding who will be owning the task and by when. So simply put, you say, well, we recognize that we have hiring, and we said earlier that was going to be a priority for this quarter. So HR manager, your priority will be to hire 3 people for these roles over the next 30 days. Let me know how you're doing with that through a weekly check-in point. Done. I trust that you're going to run with it. And every week you're going to give me an update. I don't need to be checking in on you. I don't need to be, micromanaging or hovering over it. It's simply communicating expectations and delegating it down. So, as a manager of a department or as a business leader, that where you have a small team, is learning how to delegate that with a point that it does not become controlling. You control messaging. Now, if done right, your team will feel completely empowered to make decisions without fear. That means that they don't feel like if they fail, they're going to get in trouble, or they're going to get terminated, or, they're going to get a talking to. They'll be able to come to you and just say, hey, here's what I did. Didn't go as planned, but I'm still working through it. Here's my learnings, right? And in doing so, you really reinforce that trust messaging. And instead of focusing on the failure, you focus more on what's been accomplished and how it's been done. That's how the coaching aspect of it works. Like, take me through that. What learning did you find? How did you come up to the conclusion that it didn't work? Right? And that's when you can then focus on pivoting on the action and letting the person learn from their mistake and not feel like you micromanage them through it. So yeah, Willie, back to you, and just looking for some examples on, how you've experienced micromanaging in your businesses, and what are some of your feedbacks to the group?
Yeah, one thing comes to mind. I used to go to the deck yard every single day because I didn't trust that they would strap everything down properly or whatever the case. And that always created an extra 4 hours in my day every evening in the yard. And so yeah, I had a tough time letting go, and that was a huge problem in other areas. So I was kind of burning myself out by micromanaging everything. And once I had set better expectations in place, that's when I found myself where, okay, now the expectations are clear, and I started to relax more around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, probably what you find is if you become comfortable in that sort of environment where you're micromanaging, you start to do that in other areas of the business. And then all of a sudden, you're draining with work because you're trying to micromanage it all.
That's right.
Right. But that's a key example, in showing trust in that you've hired people to do a job, right? Which is what I started with this topic with, you identify in your business, hey man, I need to hire a salesperson, or I need to hire an HR person, or I need to hire an ops person. You hire them, you bring them in, and then all of a sudden you're doing the work for them because you're
Yeah.
micromanaging. Then why did you hire them in the first place?
Yeah.
Right. So just some talking points on that one, and to give you some idea of how micromanaging can really create chaos in your business. So moving on to topic number 3, module number 3, which we'll be going through the next one. It's managing and ignoring workload limits. This is important. Workload sustainability and respecting the bandwidth. Just because your team can handle extra work doesn't mean they should. Right? Piling on tasks without considering bandwidth leads to exhaustion. And by doing so, again, you're creating burnout and frustration within your team and your leaders. So, burnout is not just long hours. It's about lack of control and overload. So you want to be aware of the capacity within a team. Now, I have a tool and a saying that I speak to often, and I call it the accordion effect. Some of you that have worked with me before will have learned this. And so the accordion effect is something that I talked about. And what I do is I structure a role and I put a lot of tasks in it at the beginning. It's like a stress test for me to see what the bandwidth is of the role. And I push it in, I squeeze the accordion in. and then I ask for feedback. I ask, like, what's the workload? What is too much? Are you able to handle it? Are you not? Like, what are some of the pain points? And through that exercise, we remove tasks and delegate them where they need to be. And we expand the according to the level of that the role will be set up for success. Now, why do I do it that way and not in reverse? Like, why don't I let it expand first and then contract it? Well, because we're humans. And as humans, we will naturally expand our day to fit our working hours. As an example, if you're an hourly employee and you're tasked with working an 8-hour day, guess what? It doesn't matter if you have one task or 5, you're going to make it fit into an 8-hour workday. Right? And that's because we're going to find fluff to fill our day, especially on hourly paid employees. Not all, but a lot of people will. And with today's world, the cell phone is the biggest time waster there is out there, especially in field roles, right? Because people can just scroll and make their day, filled. And on desk jobs as well, because you've got access to a computer, you can go online and cruise your social media sites. So that's why I start with the pain point in, and then I expand it out to release the pressure and allow a nice workload to be then implemented and sustained through the organization and through the team. Now, you'll find your way and you'll find what works for you, but that's a tool that I've been using for a number of years, and it's helped me ensure that, number one, I don't burn out managers and I don't burn out leaders. But at the same time, we're looking to delegate downstream as well, and then bring up individuals within the organization, right? It's always good for you as leaders to know the capacity on your team. Just because a person will do the task and say yes, doesn't mean you keep piling on, right? You have to be aware of the breaking point, and you have to be able to prioritize what are the tasks that should be assigned to that role and to that individual. So managing your workload limits is key. As we think about those 10 points that organizations really make mistakes on. So Willie, I know you usually work a lot, and talk to us about your bandwidth and what's been your experience on managing workload sustainability.
Yeah, one thing comes to mind is where, and we probably all have experienced that we have had people where they never say no. And so what Hector is talking about is, as a leader, you have to think of, okay, even though they're never saying no, we can't just keep piling on. And that was definitely early on mistake in my business for sure. It took me a while to actually say, man, this is too much for this person, or even, yeah, people would offer to work whenever on the weekends, and they should be off actually. And I know you, Hector, you took that kind of serious where if a person books off, they should be off.
Yeah, and I think, as a mental health and clarity, people need to check off. They need that time for themselves, for their families, for just their own peace of mind. And so it's important to give them that time. Now, when they're on, and it's part, as some of our roles require us to be on 24/7 because we're business unit leaders, we sign up for that. And we know that going in, but it's important to know, like, look, we need to be able to have that disconnect time as well. But it's important, Willie, as you say, right, to look for the signs. Just because people are saying yes all the time doesn't mean that it's always going to work. And so finding what should stay within that role as a check-in point is going to be required. You can't just add on, and never take away, right? So you contract, you push, and then you let it expand by taking the task and giving the individual some breathing room. Right. All right. Let's move on to number 4. So unrealistic deadlines, right? Setting this is crazy. We've all lived through this. We all get that call. We all gain the account, and or with a quote that we need to complete in 24 hours. and we got to hit it out of the ballpark, or we're not going to gain that expected result. So, pushing for impossible timeline, like this forces people to sacrifice their well-being. It leads to rushed, lower quality work and long-term resentment. Like we've talked about how unclear expectations can create and can be the root of most performance issues in an organization. So my slogan to this is clarity is kindness. So be kind to your people and give them clarity. Do not give them these unrealistic deadlines that will force them to crash and that will force the organization to not have a good, solid culture to be able to speak the truth about these deadlines. Role clarity is so important. And so we have to define what is that role clarity in the business, knowing what are you accountable for and when is those regular deadlines need to be done. As an example, if you have an internal finance team and you say, look, one of the deadlines that must be done for us every single month is that our P&L must be completed and reported back to us within the 10th day of the following month. Now, is that realistic? It is. 10 days gives you plenty of time to complete all of your transactions, complete your reporting, and bring it back to your team. But if you were to say, hey, I want to close month end by day 5 or less, well, that's not realistic. That means your accounting folks are working weekends, they're working extra hours throughout the week, and they're just going to rush through the data and give you really bad reporting. So as an example of what would be like true clarity and task clarity to be able to communicate to your team. Now take that approach, and some of you have service companies to where you might have a deadline to say, I need this job completed by this time frame because you've quoted it that way. Well, make sure that your quoting is in fact right, in that it takes to account proper hours, man hours on the job, proper, weather impact, proper labor impact. What if somebody calls in sick or gets hurt on the job? And how does that impact your job, right? So quoting correctly, a service job will enable you to have realistic, timelines for those deadlines to be completed on. So I know James and I know Mike here, both in that service industry world. And, that is always a challenge when it comes to deadlines and meeting those expectations. So how do you ensure that your team understands it? You communicate with them, you go through the plan, you ensure that there's understanding both ends. Hey, week 1, we have to have these 10 tasks done of this job. Do you see any gaps here? Tell me, right? The team's got to tell you if they see gaps. If they don't, then there's going to be an assumption that they're bought in and they're going to accomplish it. And that's where it could be wrong. Don't assume anything. Ask for clarity. Check in with them, confirm their understanding instead of assuming it, right? And then revisit those expectations often. So like the huddle that we talked about, a daily check-in provides you the opportunity to check in on deadlines and ensure that they're realistic and or make adjustments, or a weekly check-in. However it works best for your organization, it's always important to have those check-in points when dealing with deadlines and what that may look like for your teams. So Willie, back to you, and wanting to hear some examples and some of the challenges that you've had with deadlines and setting clear expectations for your teams.
I was thinking this wasn't a problem for us. We didn't have any deadlines, so nobody knew when the deadline was.
Everybody was just running with chaos.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's where I was going to start. First, you have to start with actually deadlines, and then make them realistic. Uh, it's definitely something that I have learned and is super helpful. And also, I was pretty quick to ask what people would think, what could be a proper deadline for certain things, and actually talk through and come up with an agreement around that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's when you look through some of those challenges, it's like engaging the team is so important to get
Yeah.
two-way feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I remember is I was just thinking back when you said that we didn't have like deadlines. Man, we had some of the toughest deadlines. We had to meet 5 a.m. deliveries in
Yeah.
the north in the winter.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The delivery deadlines were pretty, yeah, pretty demanding.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember in BC where you lose the hour and you still gotta somehow fly freight from Edmonton to Fort St. John in the middle of winter can be fun.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So you're telling me then that I can actually negotiate deadlines with different team members. I don't, as the leader, always have to be the end all and be all and set that. So based on maybe some of my team members, different personality styles, behavior styles, some of the different capacities that they have or don't have, that's a negotiating that's something that can be negotiated.
It surely can be. Obviously, you're going to be challenged by your customers' expectations and your business needs. But what you find in the negotiation piece is that you're going to have individuals that will rise to those expectations and help you close the gap versus those that drain on the expectation, right? You might have those individuals that'll say, yeah, like 2 weeks to do that job. How do we do it? Okay, if we do this and you do that, we can get it accomplished. And the engagement that comes to completing the deadline together is much easier than you coming to them and saying, I need it done by this. No questions asked about it. It's a 2-week job. Go do it. So there's a difference in how that message is delivered and collaborated. Does that help you with that, Alan?
And what I would add to that is where I think if one person might say, man, no, I don't think we can meet that deadline. The next person would say, oh, I think if we do it this and this way, or they will start brainstorming themselves how to meet that deadline.
That's absolutely right. Like
Yep.
that's it, right? And then you find collaboration and engagement, then ultimately the team's bought in and it doesn't feel like it's unrealistic and it doesn't feel like you're carrying 1,000 pounds on your shoulders, right? It's everybody doing it together. And that's how the mind shift works. So when we talk about unrealistic deadlines, it's not to say, hey, let's not do them or let's not push. It's how do we deliver them so that they're collaborative. Okay, perfect. Let's move on to our fifth one now. This one is one that some people that have worked with me might say that I can handle these ones quite well. And so it's avoiding tough conversations. Now, entrepreneurs and business leaders, I've met so many in my career that backpedal on this one, and I often hear, don't worry about that. It'll take care of itself. They avoid having the tough conversations. Now, letting problems fester instead of addressing them will not only create a super toxic environment where everybody stresses out, but it will make people lose credibility on you as the leader. Like it is now your leadership that will lose momentum. Not only the culture that it creates toxic, you can say goodbye to how you're viewed as a leader because you now look like you can't handle the tough conversations. So silence is not safety. I've always heard a lot of those individuals that struggle with this is they're like, listen, I'd rather not rock the boat. It's safer we just don't do that. It's best for our team if we don't do that. And that is just the worst because it leads to festering resentment. So as I said, your leadership becomes in question. And after your leadership becomes in question, they become resentment to you. You're holding back the culture to your organization. And what could happen is like the reality is you're going to lose the good people. The good people in your organization will leave because you failed to act on the bad ones. So I always think of like my style, and I'm one that, as I said, naturally does not have a hard time with these, but it's because I'm curious. I like to take a curious approach and find out why the people are doing this. I don't
Mm.
just go in with it with an automatic hammer. I like to understand why. And so when I have these conversations with people, I ask about why are they completing tasks in a certain way, or why they're going about it in that way. Why are they answering it? Why are they doing it the way they're doing it? To understand a couple things. Is this a gap in training? Is this a gap in hire? Or is this a gap in communication from the leadership standpoint? Like, did I fail to set them up for success? Or did we just rush them through the training? So I want to understand it from that standpoint, because that allows me to have some empathy over judgment, right? So that's important. It's like, I don't want people to think, oh, Hector's the hard ass that's just going to fire people. That's not my first approach. Now, does it often land there? Yes, it does. And I'm not going to lie to anybody. It often does land there, because what I find is that it's not a lack of training, it's a lack of care. We can fix training, but I can't fix care. You're either going to want to do it or you're not. And when you don't, that is an easy answer for me. And it generally leads to replacement of the individual, right? So, that's where I would always talk about curiosity, right? And I always go with this model. Situation. So if you're looking for what's important through this one, situation, behavior, impact, and what happens next. So in my feedback loop that I have with the individual, I explain the situation. Hey, Bob, you keep showing up late every single day for the last week. That situation is telling me that you don't care about our customers, you don't care about our people, and you really don't care if our team starts on time, right? As a service field truck in an example here, right? The impact that you're having is that you're causing us to get out to sites late. We're missing our job timelines, and we're upsetting our customers, and we're about to lose the job. So what I want you to do next, starting tomorrow, is I want you to be on site 10 minutes early. I want you to text me or clock in. I want to see that you're here 10 minutes early for the next 5 days. You can do that for the next 5 days. It shows me that you care and that we're going to be aligned about this moving forward. Now, that's how I use that example of situation, behavior, impact, and next to give you a clear outcome on how to apply that to your teams. Okay. Now, conflict sometimes is not a bad thing. In sort of taking it to another positioning here. Some people avoid conflict because they think that, hey, I'm going to stay quiet and I won't ruffle feathers. But having some conflict in your business can be healthy. As an example, conflict between a sales team and an operations team is as long as it's aligned to meeting the company goals, can certainly be healthy, right? Pushing for growth, one or the other will allow the organization to continue to scale in a healthy way. Well, how does that happen, or how do we do that? And it's through engagement. Sales can go out and say, we're going to get that account, $1 million account. It's going to give us X amount of revenue, but with that, it's going to come with some challenges operationally. Operations has to meet that challenge by getting the right equipment, getting the right people, getting the right process. And it's going to go through some pain. It's going to conflict with sales. You guys got us this. You didn't ask us if we were ready, all this stuff. And it's going to go back and forth. But there's going to be a point when operations get stability. They find it, they're consistent, and now sales goes and pushes again. And that's how you break through. So always consistently push those two departments to gain and to get engagement and not dysfunction. So that is a way that I encourage some healthy conflict in your teams. But the one that I spoke to about first is the one that I'd like the teams to focus on avoiding in your business or departments or divisions. Get rid of them. Don't be afraid to have the tough conversations and address them head on. Right. So,
Hey, Hector,
yeah.
can I chime in? That first one you said about the guy coming in late, just an example. would you give him an outcome if he doesn't show up on time again? Would you give him an outcome like, hey, if you don't do this, these are the consequences that could possibly happen up to dismissal?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the next piece comes in, right? In the next stage, as you close off, you outline your expectations. Totally. Right now, I'll leave this section here with saying this last things. Always prepare with these conversations with intent, meaning you know what the outcome that you expect to have at the end of that conversation. So at the end of it, I want clarity from the individual that they understand of what they need to do to correct their actions or behaviors. And I'm not leading with emotion. I'm not going to be here feeling sorry for the individual because we've already had our discovery. We talked through it. We understood why they're doing what they're doing. So I don't let emotion handle that conversation. It's purely with intent, right? So finding out what we're doing and then addressing it head on. So that's how I'll leave these 5 topics tonight. Let's open it up for some Q&A and can't wait to hit on the next 5 next week. So back to you, Alan and Willie.
I was going to add to this. The tough conversations with employees was always a lot harder for me, but then I was thinking it also is when you have to have those tough conversations with your customers. And I've had many of those in my lifetime where that was something that I just always went head in. The minute I found out that somebody wasn't quite happy, I had no problem picking up the phone and calling them. And I was always telling our dispatch to do the same thing. If they know if something is late or damage, let's let the customer know before they call us. That was our rule.
Absolutely.
And I've had people call us. This one guy, once he was driving and he said, "Hold on." And so I wasn't sure what now. And then he stopped beside the road. He said, "I had to stop here because you know what? There's not one freight company out there that I have ever gotten a call that they're calling me before the freight shows up that it's already damaged." And he just went on and raved about how we were handling this. And so out of those tough conversations, it's amazing what can come out of it if you're staying ahead of until it all blows up.
Absolutely, absolutely. Maybe Willie, would you be able to put that last slide back up that you showed us before we got everybody on the? Yeah, there you go. And then you can kind of take a snapshot of
Yeah.
that. Kind of gives us a reminder. We're down to probably about the last 10 minutes of the call here, but we want you guys to own the call. We want this to you own this section. So if there's any comments, any questions you have about any of the 5 mistakes, and Hector right on the money with those mistakes today. I think they're very common mistakes. I think every business sees those mistakes. Every leader has to learn, those mistakes. We make them. So, guys, you're probably shouldn't say all guys. We've got Cecilia on the line here as well. But I make those mistakes. If you've got something to chime in, you got some questions, something specific about those, this is your time. And maybe you've got other questions about other parts of your business, other things going on, something that happened to you in your organization today or this week. Hey, bring them out. And I know that Hector and Willie would love to tackle them. So why don't you guys own the next 10 minutes and we'd love to hear from you. Who wants to unmute and go first?
Who is currently dealing with some of these mistakes today?
Well, I had a couple of comments, if I may.
Yeah, sir. Go ahead, Alex.
A number of years ago, I worked for a company where the son of the guy who founded the company took over the company, and he was the most brilliant leader I've ever seen and met in my life.
Nice.
He would empower you when you got hired. When I got hired in their sales department, here's your quote book, and he just said, you own it. If it goes sour, it's the buck stops there. If it goes great, you get the credit. He would never interfere, no matter what. And because he empowered people in the office, he was able to take his dad's company from 5 million to 25 million in 7 years.
Wow,
He
amazing.
empowered people like it was unbelievable how he treated his staff. We had technicians. It was a union shop. I started in August and October that year. all the mechanics had a special meeting, voted the union out because they were being treated better by the owner than the union would treat them.
Wow.
Now, comparing it to the Calgary office, the manager there had to make, no one was allowed to issue a purchase order no matter what the cost was. You couldn't issue a purchase order for a $10 part. He had to have control. That office stagnated while the Edmonton office took off. Then 7 years later, his younger brother came in and took over the business, and I mean, he was brand new out of MBA school, and he was so full of energy and drive. But every month, we as managers would meet with him as the general manager, and after about 5 months, the controller said, every month we meet, you're headed us in another direction. You've read something and you want us to do this. And she said, our staff takes the whole month getting ready for you to implement something new. You never give it a chance to work. And it did exactly what you said. The staff got to the point where they just ignored it all after a while. They were just so tired and worn out. So I want to just echo that it's absolutely true, everything you said tonight.
Excellent. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate that. That's great. I thought, James, I think you had a question, or you were going to comment there.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
James.
just, yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm definitely guilty of all of these. I think I'm a master at them.
Well, that's what we're here, right? That we're here to learn. We're here to get encouraged on how to do things a little differently and learn from our mistakes. We're all human, right? And so, what we were thinking of while addressing these and bringing them up was like reinforcing that these are not bad. Like just because you're doing them, it's being aware of them and learning from them is what's important from here on out. If you know you're doing these now, you have been empowered to make a change now that you know how they're impacting your business.
Right. Especially, I mean, number 2 and number 3 really, stand out. I have a very hard time of not looking over somebody's shoulder and making sure, hey, did you guys follow checklist? Did you do this? Did you do that? Right. But then the flip side of that has been, where I've been finding I need to go out and do more quality checks, because if stuff gets missed, then I can go back and say, hey, why is this checked off on an inspection form and the work has not been done? So then it almost seems as, I go back to micromanaging because somebody's not following the procedures we have to make sure every T gets crossed and I gets dotted. But yeah, I can definitely see where this is going for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Good to hear. And then that's when you address it with having those tough conversations, right? When it's too consistent.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
also lay out the expectations maybe a little better.
Right. The other one, the number 3 that the previous guy that did work for us, he was a prime example of number 3. It did not matter, he worked for me for 7 years. It probably took me 4 years to realize it doesn't matter how much work I put on this guy, he'll never say no. And he'll just work harder and longer days to make it happen. And finally, yeah, it took me a long time to realize that he was burnt out after year 3, but he would just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and then the challenge there is that you've got someone who quality of work may not be as good, if they didn't take on so much, and you're not developing the folks around him as well to really grow, right? And then ultimately the individuals leave because they just feel burnt out and they don't feel appreciated because they just feel like there's always something they're doing that somebody else isn't.
right.
Yeah, awesome. I think we've got
Yep.
Mike and Cecilia still on here, right?
Yep. So Mike and Cecilia are both with us.
Yes. Yeah, I can go next. I think, yeah, I mean, looking at these 5 mistakes, I can say that, yeah, I've experienced all of them, not in the same team. But yeah, I think the ones that stand out for me, that really, really make a difference, once I noticed the mistake, was the avoiding tough conversations, like trying to give a person an opportunity, or trying to change the environment, or certain circumstances around workloads and stuff like that. and thinking that you're gonna get a different outcome. And at the end of it, you realize that you have to have the tough conversation, regardless. And when that has happened, in my experience, and if the person, you put the person on an improvement plan, and then in the end doesn't work out, the person leaves. It doesn't really make that much of a difference how the person was affecting the team, as opposed to how once the person is removed, the rest of the team just pull in the same direction, and they realize, like, okay, you did this. They give you the respect, and at the same time they're like, you know what, we're gonna chip in and just try to get the work done, and until you find a replacement and this and that. So you realize, like, the whole team was waiting for that to happen. That's something that is really that I've noticed in a team, that makes a lot of difference.
Absolutely, man. Like that is so good to hear because it reinforces, the messaging around trusting your people and empowering them and rewarding them in a way, because you're taking away the bad apple that's causing more pain in their workday. And so by removing that, man, it's like a fresh of like fresh air, and they're just looking to get in and help out.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I know we've seen it. Cecilia and we've seen it many times in our collaborative businesses that we work together in, and
Yeah.
it's a challenge, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Mike,
Mike,
we got some
go
last
ahead.
minute chime-ins from you, brother. What do you got for us, Mike?
Oh, I was just gonna say on the micromanaging, it's tough to learn that, like, trust and verify. Just trust what they're doing and then verify it after. It is a hard one to let go, and I see a lot of managers where I am now really have a struggle with that, and they just take on too much and then won't allow to delegate any work out. So it's just hard to teach them to trust and verify that it will get done, and then you will check it at the end of it, right? And I see that struggle a lot where I am right now.
Totally. And these are mistakes. Like we all do them. Remember, we're all human. There's nobody here saying that we're perfect, and that like I will say I do some of these things, and then I catch myself and I'm like, whoa, like I need to stop. Like, I might take on too much, and then I have to say, wait a minute. That's why I have individuals in roles that will help me with this. I now have them here. I can start delegating this, or on the unrealistic deadline piece, I'm one to push. I'm one to say, look, we need to have this done by this date. And I have to step back and hear the feedback, and people tell me what you're asking for is not real. Like you need to be realistic here. This is going to create this other chaos. Like as an example, this week I was pushing on a specific commodity. We've started hauling a new commodity in our world, and I was not giving up on the noise that I was hearing. We need more equipment. We need more equipment. And I was saying, no, like go find a way to be efficient with the equipment that we have, share that equipment amongst our teams versus going out to rent another trailer, as an example. And my team was pretty vocal and like, nope, I know what you're asking of us, but here's the risk. Here's what will end up happening if we don't do this. Like the efficiencies are not worth the safety concerns that could happen. And it made sense to me. And I gave up, or gave in, I should say, and we got the trailer, right? Or we got the equipment. So just as an example, that we're all human. There's nobody here that says, look, like we got it down to a pack, but it's good to be aware of it and then pivot and adjust when you see it.
Yeah. I see we're at the 6 o'clock mark. Man, that went fast. We must have been having a good time because it went really, really fast. And so, we want to honor your time. So thanks for being with us on the call and being in the Zoom room. But Hector, do you have a last minute, comment? And Willie, do you have a last minute comment you might want to leave us with before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I'll leave it to Willie because Willie's got a lot of cool stuff coming up in the community that I know he's dying to share with everybody. So Willie, I'll let you go first.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, no, other than I would say just we're still working on the app development, so we're hoping to have app that we can download on the phone pretty soon. And also, yeah, some more tools, assessments. There's right now an assessment tool in the app that you can assess your business and see where you're at on certain topics. And yeah, very excited about just the development of everything. We actually have our website up, and so that's all coming along very well.
Yeah, thanks, Willie. And one of the cool things that we're launching that Willie's working on, I don't want to give too much away, but you know, these assessments that are going to be coming out are going to allow us to really identify what the room has put out as pain points, and how we as a community will help you resolve those pain points in your organization and what's important to you. So when you see these surveys, please complete them, please fill them out, because they're going to help us create content and have, you know, subject matter experts in the future come to these calls where we're going to be able to engage in their expertise as well.
Love it. I love it,
Yeah.
love it, love it. That's a pretty good teaser to leave us on. I got to say thank you to everybody, not just to Willie and not just to Hector, but to all of you. You make the experience so much better than if it was just Hector and me and Willie. So, you know, that combined wisdom in the room truly makes this a thoughtful Thursday for me. And learning how to correct the mistakes that you brought our way makes this a thankful Thursday for me too. And I hope it's the same for you. So should we just say goodbye?
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the evening, and yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thanks,
Nice to
guys.
Take
see
care.
you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. See you,
Bye.
Mike. See you,
Bye.
James.
See you guys.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, bye.